how old you guys were.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and we can talk about how old we are. And what I've done is I've taken a cue from George Carlin. Um, Ariel, George
Very
Carlin
old.
was a legend in our comedy world. Um, he said somebody said you're 78. He said, yeah, but that's 23 Celsius. So I introduced myself. I'm 17 Celsius, and I guess somebody who's like an accountant for oh, that means you're 62.6 years old. It's like, well, yeah, I didn't want to get that detailed, but yeah, it's a different way of looking at it. And there was a guy at a TED Talk a few years ago. Paul Tasner is 70-something years old, starting his own recycling business in the Bay Area in California. And it's really inspiring TED Talk. And I talked to him afterwards, and I said, man, it's just it's inspiring to see you at a TED Talk, because you think, oh, that's a younger person's thing, right? But we came up with the idea that youth is not an age; it's more of or it's not a number. It's more of a state of having passion for your ideals, and in that way we can remain young at any age. Then we can also use the Celsius scale, So there you have it.
Well,
the number.
It's true. It's true. I think we're ready to go live, right? And get the party started. We are live, but
we are live.
Get started. So, welcome everyone to Nonprofit Coffee Talk this week, and we're super excited that you're tuning in with us. So, just a little bit about us and why we're doing this. So we believe that nonprofit leaders are superheroes who are tasked with the world's most difficult problems, and that's improving lives in our communities with little support and a shoestring budget. I'm Libby Villavicencio. I'm a nonprofit champion, and I have a consulting business, Libby V and Associates. We help nonprofit leaders grow their superpowers to achieve their mission and purpose through visioning, theory of change, leadership, coaching, fundraising support, organizational and board development. And our clients successfully raise more money, achieve stronger impact, and greatly improve the lives of the people they serve. Not all nonprofits can afford to hire a consultant. So I created Nonprofit Coffee Talk as a way to provide great content and helpful information to as many nonprofit people as I can. So I hope you find it useful. And please feel free to drop a comment about other topics you'd like to see discussed on Nonprofit Coffee Talk. And I'd like to introduce my associate, Ariel Dotson, who is a project manager for Libby V and Associates and also helped me put Nonprofit Coffee Talk together. And she is fantastic. So I'd like to give her a couple minutes to say hi.
You're the best, Libby. So I first met Libby a few years ago when you were doing the Nonprofit Coffee Talk with Bethany. So it's funny how everything comes full circle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And the place that I met Brian is where you met Brian. But my name's Ariel Dotson. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Core Legacy, a nonprofit in Columbus, Ohio, focused on educating and empowering young men and women who've experienced childhood trauma. So I'm all about connecting with other nonprofit leaders and learning as much as we can and collaborating to see how we can make change faster, better, together.
Thanks, Ariel. So today our topic is the difference between mission, purpose, and meaning in life. Perhaps we'll also talk about the difference between a good idea and a great idea. And so our speaker today is Brian Reinbold, and he is a fantastic nonprofit leader. And I met him, like Ariel said, I don't know when, Brian, a couple years ago. On the Charitable Roundtable, which is a nonprofit networking group that is virtual on Zoom once a month. And Brian is a mission specialist with BraveHearts for Kids. So I'd like him to take a couple minutes to talk about himself and just go ahead and get started with our topic today.
Well, thank you, Libby, and thank you, Ariel. I'm Brian Reinbold. I'm a mission specialist with BraveHearts for Kids. BraveHearts for Kids was founded back in 2008 by Jeremy and Amy Jacobs. Jeremy is, as it turns out, one of the people that runs NASA. And because of his work there, he heard about a revolutionary three-dimensional proton radiation technology that was used then to save his daughter's life. She had brain cancer, and she was the first child treated in Houston at the MD Anderson Cancer Center using that proton radiation technology. She's now a high school student, and a dream come true. So they started the organization for outreach to help families get through the crisis of having a child with cancer. And when I got involved with the organization, it was only 3 weeks old, and I was something of an advisor to a family charity, what I call a kitchen table charity. You know, and they were that mom and pop type nonprofit organization for about 6 years, and then they became a 501c3. And I was invited to join the board, and I did. And I took the title mission specialist at that time because I liked the NASA connection. I thought that was kind of cool. And I realized that I've been doing that my whole life, helping organizations and individuals figure out what their vision is, what their mission is, what their purpose is, and bringing meaning to all of that. So when we talk about the idea of mission and purpose and meaning, again, I'll go back to NASA, and coming up this September is the 60th anniversary on September 12th of John Kennedy's "Why the Moon" speech.
Oh.
And he asked, you may ask, why the moon? Why choose that as our goal? They may well ask, why climb the highest mountain 9 years ago? Why Lindbergh flew the Atlantic 35 years ago? It's a different perspective in 1962, right? And he said, we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. They bring out the best in us. And we will achieve these things and the other things too. And so mission, the way I see it is, mission is the trip to the moon and back. It's what we do. Purpose might be illustrated by the ticker tape parade a couple of months after the astronauts got back from the moon trip in July of 1969. Purpose was bringing the country together to achieve the mission. And so purpose is why we do it. And meaning then that's how we feel about it. And so it brings meaning to me and to many others, I think, to know that this was done, and it can be done. You know, if you're looking at September of 62 giving the speech on why the moon, and then in September of 69, 7 years later, having a parade in Manhattan for the astronauts that had been to the moon and back 7 years later, and they did that with slide rules. You know, I think we have an opportunity in our world to really accomplish some things that we're just not getting at very well. And maybe we just are. We're just doing it at a different pace, or maybe there's just so much more that we're trying to accomplish. And so that's a little bit about the way I view the mission, purpose, and meaning.
That's great. Can you dig in a little bit, sort of about, how a nonprofit leader might kind of apply those three in their own organizations or in their own lives?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that when I describe mission as something that's what we do, and purpose as well, that's why we do it, and then the meaning is how we feel about it.
So what, why, and how we feel.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Libby, we've known each other for a while, and I have some favorite quotes, right?
Yes.
One of my favorites is from Howard Thurman, and he said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Instead, ask what makes me come alive. Then go do that."
Wow.
And I reckon that's when we find out what the world wanted from us after all. Because when we do what makes us come alive, that's the doing what you're great at and what you love to do. That's in a Venn diagram, the 3 circle diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the two overlap. What makes you come alive? That's what you're great at, what you love to do. And the law of attraction, I have found, brings what the world needs and how to serve right into line with that. So it creates the third part of that Venn diagram through the law of attraction. And it happens because when we do what makes us come alive, we display what people see as passion. Mm-hmm. And I believe that passion ensues. Passion is something, like a laugh to a joke. Passion is what follows living purposefully. And so when I see someone says, "Wow, they're really passionate about what they do," I say, "Man, you are alive with purpose." And that is a wonderful place to be. So working with nonprofit organizations and anywhere from the mom and pop all the way up to the American Cancer Society that we've served, helping people to determine what is the idea that we want to turn from a good idea into a great idea, and yeah, that's something I know that we talked a little bit about. What is the difference between a good idea and a great idea? And you work with nonprofits, and so and it's just working with people, you're bound to hear, "Hey, you know what you should do?"
Yes.
You get that. You get a lot of that, and almost always it's well intentioned.
Sure.
You should straighten out your picture in the back, whatever. Taking all those good ideas and figuring out, well, what is it amongst those good ideas? What is it that we see that's well intentioned that we can turn into a great idea? And the great ideas are what I define as good ideas that we've decided to put our time and talent, our energy, and our love into. And that's what turns a good idea into a great idea. And it's like making a jigsaw puzzle. Your great ideas, those are the corner pieces. You find those, and everybody's got the experience putting together a puzzle. It's like, what do you do when you find a corner piece? Everybody does a little happy dance, right? So that's the good idea and the great idea. And we came up with something that we use for working with boards, and it's we call it the idea hierarchy. It's the idea that we start with brainstorming. And BraveHearts for Kids, we started this. My goodness, this is 4 years ago. I think we did this already. And we started with 3 45-minute brainstorming sessions for 7 board members on a Friday morning. We came up with 900 good ideas, passing the idea sheets around. And by the end of the day, Saturday, we had it worked down to 3 that we decided to turn into great ideas. One was a mobile app to connect families with resources in their community. One was a connection with the National Day calendar for National BraveHearts Day, April 28th, National BraveHearts Day, which, by the way, is also National Superheroes Day. And I thought, I just had to make a note of that when you're talking to you work as superheroes. Yeah, this when you're working. What if it were possible to be a Braveheart and a superhero. Well, it is, So that's what we did on National BraveHearts Day this year. And then the third idea was one that that eventually evolved into what we call BraveHearts Radio. And that idea was doing good anywhere does good everywhere. What if it were possible to help other organizations to be successful? That doesn't hurt our organization. It makes the world better, and that helps our organization. So that kind of a perspective on doing good work, doing good anywhere does good everywhere. If you help one thing, it makes everything stronger. And such as it is with life and the wheel of wellness for individuals, and such as it is for an organization too.
I love that. I love that abundance mindset, right? Of, what makes one organization better or one person better makes us all better. That's great. And I love the puzzle metaphor.
Yeah, thank you.
Because not only just because, you find a corner piece and you celebrate, but there are only 4.
Mm-hmm.
There are only 4 corners, right?
Yeah.
So it matched up with your story about that idea hierarchy, brainstorming.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get all these puzzle pieces, but there are just 4 that are the corners.
And a 900-piece puzzle or a 1,000-piece puzzle. And you first of all, when you make a puzzle, and we did this when I was a kid at grandma's house, we would decide, well, which puzzle do we want to do? So you picked a picture that you wanted to create. You had a vision for what you wanted to achieve. And you put the pieces on the table. You first of all, you started turning them right side up, and you built the edge. You found out what's on the inside. What can you do something about? What's on the outside? What can't you do anything about? And as you turn those pieces over, somebody finds a corner piece, and then you celebrate, right? And we found that in every single instance, when we built a puzzle, if we did certain things in a certain way, by the end of the weekend, we always had a puzzle that looked exactly like the picture on the box, just like the vision, by doing the right things and in the right order. So.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a question, because I know you well enough to know that you're always self-reflecting, right?
Yeah.
So I just wonder, what have you been up to this summer?
I should have gone and picked a couple of tomatoes, because I'm growing tomatoes. I remembered how much I enjoyed going out to the backyard and picking a pint of 50, 60, cherry tomatoes and bringing them in and having those fresh cherry tomatoes. So I picked up a couple little cherry tomato plants in February at the grocery store. They're about 4 inches high. Now they're about 6 feet high, and they got wire baskets around them. So they're really growing up, and had the first fruits last night. So I'm working on growing tomatoes, and there's a lot of other green stuff that comes up in the garden next to the tomatoes. And sometimes I'm just wondering, I wonder what that is, I just wonder what it is,
For me, it's morning glories, just FYI.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can't control them. They're out of control. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, one of them that I did let go, that's a couple feet over, it's called a pokeweed. And I thought that is impressive, because right now the thing's about 7 feet high. But I found out that it's used for salads in the South in the springtime, but at this time of year, and the berries especially are very poisonous. So that is coming down. But I thought a lot of other green things come up in the garden next to the tomatoes. And what I've been doing is I've been cultivating them. And I've got a little tool that's got a 3-prong cultivator on one side and a hoe on the other. And to cultivate those, you just scratch out or dig up the things that aren't tomatoes. And that is something, sometimes we refer to that as weeding your garden. So this is what I've been working on this summer. And I use the tomato growing as a metaphor because what I've been focusing on is what is mine to do. Um, I have a lot of ideas, and I have made a lot of connections over the last year. In fact, tell a quick story to describe that. I have a big coin sitting over on my shelf, and it's I use the coin as an analogy that the head side of the pandemic is misery and suffering in so many ways for so many people. But the tail side of that very same coin is the relationships and connections that we've created over the past couple of years with people literally from around the world because of our need to be adaptable. And the idea of survival of the fittest isn't about biggest, toughest, meanest, strongest. It's about adaptability. And people, we have done it. We have been adaptable. And for me, that means I know people all over the world, and we start bouncing around with these creative idea people. And it's like, at one point I had, I think, 6 or 7 different retreats that were in the works. And, we weren't even ready to travel yet. And we were thinking, well, let's see, South Africa, Switzerland, Italy, Queensland, Peru, Columbus, Chicago, Mandan, North Dakota. We got all kinds of great places to have a retreat. And we still have the one in Peru lined up for November this year. So that's an opportunity with BraveHearts for kids, BraveHearts Adventures. And that'll be some fun.
That'll be incredible. Like a cool vacation on top of,
yeah.
Get some good work done.
Get to Machu Picchu. And yeah.
That's very cool. So that's at what's the website for that trip?
That's BraveHeartsAdventures.org.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Yeah, and BraveHearts for Kids, BraveHeartsForKids.org. I've been working, one of my tomatoes this summer has been working on something I call the BraveHearts Ambassadors program. And so we've got, we now have 27 people, people like Libby Villavicencio, that have signed up to be ambassadors and help promote BraveHearts for Kids. And in that area, I've got fundraising, I've got media, and I've got services. So connecting. We've really made some amazing, wonderful connections. And there's one of our ambassadors has connected me with an organization that has hundreds of thousands of employees. And something that I've gotten good at over the last few years is working with organizations in an area. I call it, I think of it as employee engagement. And it's the idea that if you've got a volunteer program within your company, and then you also provide a grant to a charity based on the volunteer work that your employees do, you will hear employees say things like, "I love my company." And so when I hear that, I think they're doing something with employee engagement that's working. And I'd like to encourage other organizations, other companies to adopt something like that, because 87% of college graduates in a recent poll said going to work for someone that doesn't share my values is a deal breaker.
That's right.
And does that sound familiar, Ariel? Yep.
Yeah, I know that study. Ariel does too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't feel in integrity if you're with an organization or involved in a group or community that doesn't share the same values you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my grandfather's generation, they were just, the idea of sticking around for the gold watch, they were just glad to have a job working in the coal mine.
Mhm.
That was that was the life, and we have, getting back to that idea of abundance, we have such an abundance now that we can make decisions like that, and we should, and
Yeah,
we do.
we have different privileges, more privileges than they had.
Yeah.
For sure.
Privilege is something that's an interesting topic. I've identified the greatest privilege as being grateful.
Wow.
And I think gratitude is the beginning of all good things. But I also believe that is one of our privileges, because it's a decision that we make. You can decide to be grateful, or you can decide the woe is me, and I do that. I mean, I find myself in the poor me kind of, it's like, wait a minute, hey, snap out of it. And there's a one last story I'd like to tell, and it's about I'm better at beating myself up than I am. I beat myself up more than I beat up anybody else. I'm harder on myself than I am on anyone else. And so last summer, I distinctly remember, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't finish that, you didn't do that as well as you could have, and I was really kind of down on myself. And then I took my to-do list and I turned it over. And I thought, well, what the heck did you do? So I started writing down the things that I did. And it turned out that some of them were really pretty important. Fitness, relationships, really important things. And it reminded me of a time that my dad, who was a college teacher back in North Dakota, gave the geography final. And one of the students took the test and he turned it over. And on the back, he wrote, "Mr. Reinbold, I don't know the answers to any of the questions on your test, but this is what I learned from you this year." And he wrote down things that he learned, and some of them were pretty important. Dad said, I gave him a B.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good. That was good discretion.
That's
and
beautiful.
so I think of that as the grace to give yourself a B. Consider that a privilege, to be able to give yourself a B when you didn't get done everything you thought you needed to do. Look at what you did that was important. Give yourself.
It is amazing to pause and think about all the things that you have in your life to be grateful for. It's such a good practice to think about that, or even write it down every day.
Yeah.
Make the space. We've got just a couple of minutes left. If you have any questions for Brian, pop it in. I know it goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
It's over so quickly. That 30 minutes just flies by.
I really like your format here too, Libby.
Oh, thanks. Well, it's nice to have you on, Brian. Without any questions, do you want to kind of close, talk about anything else before we're finished here in the next 3.5 minutes?
How can people connect with you?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I think there's only a couple of Brian Reinbolds in the LinkedIn world. I'm the one with the picture of the NASA astronauts parade in my banner, so you can pick that up. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I also get email at brianreinbold2014@gmail.com. I have to confess, though, I've really surrendered to email. I get so much email that, and this is why when I send emails out to people, if I send 2 or 3 or 4 emails about the same thing, I don't feel bad about it, because quite often what happens is somebody says, "Oh, I'm sure glad you sent another one because I saw that, but it just got, it got lost." And it's, it's like it's 2 days back. That's like 8 pages, email is not necessarily overwhelming, but I have unplugged to some extent over the summer to focus on what is mine to do, and what are the tomatoes.
Yeah.
And one of them identified is the BraveHearts Adventures and the relaunch of BraveHearts Radio, which will be taking place tentatively scheduled for September 6th. I think that's Tuesday after Labor Day.
And that's a podcast that you can find.
That's going to be
right?
a rock and roll show, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. So I have to ask you before we go, how excited you are about the Webb telescope and the pictures that are coming back and all that.
Well, I'm always excited about space. I've got a couple of books on space atlases on the shelf, pictures from space, and I used to teach the astronomy merit badge back in when my boys were in Boy Scouts, and we would go out to the Badlands in North Dakota and see things like the Andromeda Galaxy and the space shuttle, because you could see that crossing the sky. And they would 20 some years ago, they would have, I think we had the internet then, you could look up when and where it was going to be.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
It's so exciting, isn't it? Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Those photos are incredible. The difference between the Hubble pictures and the Webb pictures are just, it's amazing. So, well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Brian, and hopefully we can have dinner again next time you come to Columbus. We'll include Ariel in that. And so thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate your time. It's valuable, and we're so glad you're with us. Please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or comments, and we'll be here every Thursday at this time, 11:30 Eastern Time. Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and we'll be posting the recordings. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely day, everybody.
All right.